this video, we're going to be taking a look at Twig. So we're going to learn about what it is, what it does, and how it can help you as a developer going forward. Twig is a templating engine that so far it's been a great tool to use in my developer toolbox and run through some basics and some examples to get you up and running. Specifically, we're going to be using Craft CMS, which already includes Twig. We won't have to worry about setting Twig up or anything like that. What is Twig? Like I said, it's a templating engine. It's for PHP frameworks, and it can be used as a standalone templating format. So you can install it as a standalone part of your system that you're developing, and you can implement that and basically create your own cool little stuff. So it's fast. It compiles templates down to just plain PHP code. It's secure, and it's flexible. Developers can easily create their own tags and filters, things like that. Twig can generate any text-based format, so like HTML, LaTeX, and others. A template can contain expressions that will eventually get replaced whenever the template data is loaded. So you create templates, and then you write all these variables and expressions all over the place, and basically where you have those expressions, that's where dynamic data is going to be loaded. And basically, Twig has three delimiters. So 3 ways that you can try to execute or output something. Actually, 2 ways of executing and outputting. The other delimiter actually is for commenting. So variables that are in a Twig template will be output with the double curly braces. Accessing the variables, so let's say if you had an array, or if you just, maybe if it was a single level item, we could just use the double curly braces and just write first. Well, if you want to grab, let's say, the second level in a PHP object or array, you would do first dot second. So it's pretty easy to do. It can also be, you can also write regular PHP formatting in there as well to get that. So first, and then your square brackets, and then second, right? So variables can be set inside of code blocks. So to set or to execute, you do the curly brace %, and then you say set variable equals, and then some string, a boolean value. It could be an array, a hash, or an arrow function. There are 6 different types of data that you can use with Twig. So numbers, boolean values, arrays, strings, hashes, and arrow functions. So Twig has filters. Filters are basically many functions that are applied to a Twig variable that allow the variable to be modified. So some use cases for using some of these filters, let's say if you needed to perform some math, do some logical expressions, formatting a locale or a date, string formatting, and also making conversions. Functions can help a template generate content. So functions will have the parentheses, just like a normal JavaScript or a Java or a PHP function or a C function. For example, range is a function. So let's say if we were writing a loop and it contained a range, we would say, for something in range 2, 10. That's how we would write it. Logical expressions, you can use multiple expressions in Twig. So Twig does support bitwise operators, which is very important, and would return true if the left and the right operands are both true. So an operand is basically one statement, and so let's say if you had 2 operands, so if the color equals blue and side equals left, the left and the right, so those 2 statements are basically different operands. So if those statements are both true, then it returns true. In an OR, expression or operator, these are logical expressions, they return true. It will return true if the left or right operand is true. So it doesn't really matter. It's just if one of those is true, then then it's going to be true. At this point, if you don't really know anything about logical expressions, I would take a quick look at what a truth table is, and I would study that. And a not. So what does a not do? It negates a statement. It's the opposite of what it is. We also have bitwise operators, or logical expressions. So in bitwise, we have B, and I'm going to say XOR. Some people pronounce it XOR, but I just say OR, XOR. And then you have B, OR. So the one thing that you need to do is be absolutely careful in the order of operations. So there is a operator precedence that comes with any programming language. So for Twig, there's no exception. Twig also allows math to be calculated. You can perform math in templates by using some of these operators. They are addition, which is the plus sign, subtraction, which is the minus sign, division, which is the divide sign or divide key, or the slash. I guess there is no divide key. Modulus, so let's say if you needed a remainder of something, that's the percent sign. Multiplication is the asterisk. Now, division with integer, this is really interesting. So that is a double slash. Now, honestly, I can't remember anymore if that's a forward slash or if that's a backslash. I think it's a forward slash, so let's just go with that. So the division with integer, this is really interesting. Now, this is going to take the floor. So in programming languages, there's a floor and there's a ceiling. So let's say, for instance, this calculation right here, 35 divided by 4. So the floor of that would be 8. So you have to remember, if you're doing division and you want to get the floor, or it's basically going to call a round function, and you can actually use the round function in replacement of this. However, I find that using the double slash is a shortcut. So what this will really do is it'll calculate it, 35 divided by 4. You would think that it's closer to 9, so why not just make it 9? Well, no. This particular operator will calculate it out and return the floor integer. The ceiling integer would be 9, because 35 divided by 4 is actually closer to 9 than it is to 8. So just keep that in mind when you're using it. Also, something really interesting, it can also do exponents as well. So 2 to the power of 4 is 16. So you would use the double asterisk to do that. Let's go to some examples and how we can actually utilize some of this stuff. So right now I just have my test up and going right here. So we just have a little headline, and I'm just going to make something really simple. You can follow along if you want. Otherwise, it's no big deal. Right now we have that going on. Let's get into VS Code and let's see what else we got. So right now we just basically set up the project with this. So let me go ahead. I am going to shrink some of that stuff up, and we're just going to be working right here. We can combine strings by simply adding in this cool little character. So check this out. I'm just going to say, let's see here. So let's do a greeting, or I'm just going to do a title. So I'm going to say set title. I'm going to say equals. I'm going to say test page. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comma, and the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to use, now this is how you do a concatenation. So I'm going to use the tilde, And I am going to get the item. So I'm just going to say items2 dot object. So this should actually spit out this variable, but this particular key and this object right here. So let's see here. I'm going to change this to something. Test page for concat. So let's see what happens. Oh, obviously, yeah, we forgot to do something here. So let's go back and let's just say title. So here we go. Let's refresh it. Test page for concat. So we can see this is how we do concatenation, which is pretty important because sometimes you need to combine strings. All right. So let's go on to the next thing. So strings they're pretty easy to usually work with, right? So let's do another one here. Now we can also do interpolation. So basically we can inject a string in the middle of another string. So I haven't really used string interpolation in Twig, but I have in other programming languages, well, rather PHP. I haven't used it, however, I just know about it. So let's go ahead and let's see what we can do here. So let's create a new little p tag, and let's write down. Let's do this here. I'm just creating some empty tag right here, and I'm going to go up here and set up a variable, and we're going to say set interpol, and then I'm going to say test page. Whoops, if I can learn how to spell, comma. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to take this same little object right here. And by the way, this is called a hash. Not in Twig, it's not called an object, it's called a hash. So I'm going to take that same thing and I'm going to put these around it. Actually, I'm going to do one, and I am going to wrap that in a single curly brace. So you do the pound sign or the hash, and then you do a single brace, and then the name of your variable. And something that we're going to do, we're going to take that out, and we're going to place that at the end. Now let's see what that does. And let's go here, let's do interpol, and let's see what we get. So you can see that we get the same thing. So that's how you can inject one string into another. There's two ways: use the tilde or use string interpolation. These are different. I did make them different. This has the capital P for the interpolated one, and this one has the lowercase. So let's go on to the next thing, which let's do some Boolean values. This is pretty simple. Let's just do set. We're going to say Boolean value. That's our variable name. We're going to say equals true. Now, in Twig, you have to manually write this out. It has to be true or false. There's really no exceptions behind that. You have to do it that way. So now let's go ahead and let's print out our variable. So let's just do Boolean value. It's going to be 1. So this is pretty interesting. Now, what you can do is, if you want to check against that, you can say if, and then the condition, you can say if Boolean value, and that's all you really have to do. Then we're going to print out, something else, right? So I'm not going to say Boolean value again. I'm going to say this is true. So let's see what happens there. So that's how you can make a check against that. Sometimes even you can do this. You can say if Boolean value is defined, you can do that. Now, I think, since it's defined, it's just going to go ahead and run this portion. So let's see what happens if we do this. Now, this isn't necessarily for this particular video, but I'm going to show you anyway. And this is really bad. I hardly ever do stuff like this. So let's just say is not defined. And let's wipe this out. And let's go ahead and refresh. And we get that. So what happens if, let's say it's false? Well, you get something because our test is if it's defined. So you really have to go one level. Or you can say and Boolean value. So this would say if it's defined and it's true. So this would actually give us what we're looking for. So what I was looking for is to see what if we set it to false, what's going to happen if we have this in there. So really you need to branch these out a little bit better. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at arrays. Arrays are pretty interesting, and I'll show you a little trick on how to deal with them. I'm just going to do navigation equals, and then what we're going to do is this is like a PHP array. So where you have the square bracket. Actually, let's just do this. Let's make it nicer looking. All right, so we can do something like this. So let's just put strings in here. We have an array right here called navigation. Now, there's a couple things that we can do in order to print out these navigation items, right? There is a little tag that we can use, and that's the nav tag. So we can do, and then it just automatically picks it up. So nav, items, and items. So let's just switch that to navigation and nav. We can do this. Let's just wrap this. Let's just do it right here. That way we don't get any errors. So now we have our list items that we want to write out. Let's output that. So I'm just going to say item. So what it'll do is it's going to output a list containing exactly what's in the navigation array. Now, there's a little trick. So let's take a look at this little trick. This isn't the right way to handle this particular situation with a navigation, but let's do this. So we're going to add a little filter to this navigation array. I'm going to say navigation, so that's my array, and I am going to say join, and I'm just going to be joining with a comma. And there we go. We have the same thing. It's the same exact thing, except this is just a one-liner. So if you need to output something real quick, if it's an array, you can literally just do a pipe and then a join, and then you're going to have to join it with some type of delimiting character. So you can do a period if you want. That'll actually put a space and a period. You can do anything that you want. You can do spaces. You can have some, you can do that, a little caret or a little greater than sign. You can do that if you want. It doesn't really matter. I see something like this maybe on a breadcrumb. So, just keep in mind there's different ways to. The next thing is hashes. So hashes, actually, we already did go through a hash, and that was really doing the items too. So I'm not going to really go over that, except it's very similar to the array. There are different things. You can loop through a hash using the for tag, which is, I believe, what we did right here. Let's do something called the arrow function. Arrow functions are basically compact functions that you can define in your template, and what they're going to do is they're going to return a value. Now, you're probably wondering, give me an example. All right, so let's do this. Let's say we have a list of something. Let's say that list is, some type of, let's say if it's a grocery list. Set up that list. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to set it up as an array, but at the same time, instead of it just being a flat array, it's going to look similar to what an array with key values. So it's going to look exactly like that. So let's do list, and then let's do equals, and we're going to do that. Let's set it up right here. So now what we're going to do, basically for each item, we are going to do a hash. So it's going to consist of an item. So, and then it's just going to be a string. So that's our key. This is our value. So you're going to see the similarities between PHP and Twig. Now, like I said before, Twig is for PHP frameworks. Here's our list. Now, we are going to work with this list. What this is going to do is we're going to make a list, and we're going to basically try to output it by category or by department. So we are going to output this list by department, and we're basically localizing this IT variable so we can use it later. So now what I'm going to do is we are going to set up a loop, a for loop, to loop through these specific items. So I'm going to say for, and I'm going to say department, and I'm going to say IT because we need to we're grouping by a department, so we want to do this first, and then we want to do that second. That's our second little parameter right there. And then we are going to say department items. Let's see, we need to list out our department. So I'm just going to do an H1, and then down here we are going to actually have our list. So let's just create an unordered list. And then we're going to nest another for loop inside of here. So this is going to be a multi-level for loop, or a nested for loop. Okay, so the next thing is, I need to come up with different variable names here. Let's change this guy, and let's actually list it out. So we're going to do ITE dot, and then what's going to be inside here is the item. So let's see what this looks like. And if we come up on any errors, yeah, okay. Department items, oh, yeah, silly. All right, so here we have some type of list, and probably not going to use it, but yeah, we have our heading, and it grouped everything by the name. So snacks, since it has 2, it took cookies and granola bars. You can see that's the same. If I change bread to snacks, it's going to add bread down on snacks and it actually removes the entire, it removes the entire category that breads was under. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned for more. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you want to stay up to date on various web development topics, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. See you on the next one.